Shabbat Shalom. 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom and Chag Pride Sameach. Welcome everybody to Congregation Beit Simchat Torah, the LGBTQ synagogue of New York City on this Pride Shabbat weekend. I'm Rabbi Yael, Rapport, the Associate Rabbi here at CBST, delighted to share the bima this morning with our Cantorial intern, Sam Rosen, our Cooperberg-Rittmaster Rabbinical intern, Dave Yedid, and our fearless senior rabbi, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, and to share in this online sanctuary with all of you. So please let us know where you're coming from. If it conforms with your Shabbat practice, do share your location geographically or spiritually, existentially in the chat. And as an added bonus this morning, we are delighted that Netanya, our favorite transcriber, has joined us this morning so that our services can be truly accessible. In order to enable your closed captions and to be able to see exactly what's going on in real time, at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, if you float just a little to the left of that red leave button that's all the way on the right, you see a double C, closed caption. You can just click it, or there's a little up arrow next to it, and you can get fancy. You can show subtitles, you can show full transcripts. We'll remind you periodically how this option exists in the chat, but this is an opportunity to try it out and make sure that you can access services in the most comfortable way for you. This morning at CBST, we are celebrating a Yom Tov. Pride Shabbat on the CBST calendar is one of our highest holidays. And so our service this morning will reflect the liturgical innovations and traditions that Judaism describes for all extra special holy days on the calendar. During our service this morning, we will have a Hallel. There will be an opportunity to recite Al Hanisim, the blessing on the subject of miracles, especially for Pride within the Amidah. We have a special Torah reading that we read only on Pride Shabbat. Our maftir portion will come from the book of Genesis and be the story of the rainbow, and a specially sacred Haftarah reading, a prophet's reading from the book of 1 Samuel. This is David's love song to Jonathan. And in these ways, as Jewish tradition has laid out a template, how do you say that a day is not just sacred, but extra good, extra beautiful, extra special, a Yom Tov? This is what Pride is in the CBST community. This morning, our service outline is coming from our Reconstructionist Siddur, that is Siddur Kol HaNeshama. I'm jumping into gallery view so I can see everybody who has a Kol HaNeshama at home. Lots of our CBST members from New York City to Bulgaria have their own copies of Kol HaNeshama straight from our sanctuary. Excellent, excellent. And If you would like to follow along, but you don't have the physical prayer book with you, I've just put into the chat a link to the PDF of the prayer book. So you can follow along. We're going to be calling out the page numbers as they appear in the book, which means, you know, the page number, the bottom right or left-hand corner of the page. And if you're navigating in the PDF, all you have to do is look for the actual page number. We begin our worship this morning with a series of one-line blessings, Nisim B'chol Yom, daily miracles that make up the Birchot HaShachar, the blessings we say as soon as we can tell that the sun has risen. In your Siddur, we're on page 153, and we're going to move pretty quickly because every other line of these blessings we will recite in its Hebrew or in its English translation. And if you're following along in the PDF, we're on page 183 of the PDF. And we begin.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, ha'ma'avir sheina me'enai, utnuma me'afapai.
Amen. Blessed are you, the provident our God, life of all the worlds, who gives the bird of dawn discernment to tell day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, roka ha'aretz al hamayim.
Amen. Blessed are you, the lamp our God, life of all the worlds, who makes the blind to see.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, malbish harumim.
Amen. Blessed are you, redeeming one our God, life of all the worlds, who makes the captive free.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, zokef kefufim.
Amen. Blessed are you, the way our God, life of all the worlds, who makes firm a person's steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, she'asa li kol tzorki.
Amen. Blessed are you, the mighty one our God, life of all the worlds, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, oter Yisrael betifara.
Amen. Blessed are you, the imageless our God, life of all the worlds, who made me in your image.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, she'asani ben chorin.
Amen. Blessed are you, the ancient one our God, life of all the worlds, who made me of the people Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, chei ha'olamim, hanoten laya'ef koach.
Amen. Amen. Page 162, blessed are you, the architect our God, sovereign of all the worlds, who shaped the human being with wisdom, making for us the openings in the vessels of the body.
Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar, umafli lasot.
Elohai neshama shenatata bi, tehorahi. My God, the soul you gave to me is pure. You have created it, you shaped it, and you breathed it into me. You preserve it deep inside me, and someday you will take it from me, restoring it to everlasting life. Page 165.
Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi tehorahi. Ata veratach, ata yitzartach, ata nefachta bi. ואתה משמרה בקרבי. אלוהי, אלוהי, נשמה, שנתת בי טהורה היא.
On page 177, we rise in body and spirit for Baruch She'amar.
ברוך שאמר והיה העולם,
Baruch Hu,
ברוך עושה בראשית,
Baruch Shemo,
ברוך אומר ועושה,
Baruch Hu,
ברוך גוזר ומקיים,
Baruch Shemo,
ברוך מרחם על הארץ,
Baruch Hu,
ברוך מרחם על הבריות,
Baruch Shemo,
ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרעב,
Baruch Hu,
ברוך מעביר אפלה ומביא אורה,
Baruch Shemo,
ברוך חי לעד וקיים לנצח,
Baruch Hu,
ברוך פודה ומציל,
Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. We continue on page 211. Many psalms will make their appearance in our service this morning, especially with the addition of Hallel. And from Psukei de Zimra, we picked just the headlines, the Psalm for Shabbat, Psalm 92, and the last of the book of Psalms, Psalm 150. So join us on page 211.
צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, כרז בלבנון יזכה, כרז בלבנון יזכה, כרז בלבנון יזכה יזכה, כרז בלבנון יזכה, כרז בלבנון יזכה, כערב בלבנון יזכה יזכה. שתולים בבית אדוני, שתולים בבית אדוני, שתולים בבית אדוני, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה, כארז בלבנון יזכה, כארז בלבנון יזכה יזכה, כארז בלבנון יזכה, כארז בלבנון יזכה, כארז בלבנון יזכה יזכה.
Hallelujah. Psalm 150 on page 231.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. El בקודשו, hallelujah, ברקיע עוזו, hallelujah, בגבורותיו, hallelujah, כרוב גודלו, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 בתקע שופר, hallelujah, בנבל בכינור, hallelujah, בתוף ומחול, hallelujah, במינים ועוגב, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. B'tziltzalei shama, hallelujah. B'tziltzalei trua, kol anshama. Tehallelya, kol anshama. Tehallelya. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Nefesh, ruach, neshama. These three Hebrew terms are often translated as soul or spirit, and they were originally terms for breath. Literally, the prayer Nishmat Kol Chai asserts that the breath of all living creatures proclaims God's blessing. Breath is the prerequisite of life and speech, of existence and communication, and it is a gift requiring no conscious attention except in cases of illness. If each inhalation required a direct order, each exhalation a conscious command, how would we find energy or attention for anything else? In truth, we do not breathe, we are breathed. I invite everybody to take a deep, cleansing breath. When you release, let your exhalation feel like letting go. Let the breath whoosh out of you with an audible sound. On page 235, Dave will lead us in the singing of Nishmat Kol Chai, let everything with a breath praise you, Adonai.
נשמת כל חי, תברך את שמך, אדוני, אלוהינו. נשמת כל חי, תברך את שמך, Adonai Eloheinu Yedidai dai dai ay 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 oh ay 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 ay
We continue on page 241.
נהלך ונשבח ונפארך ונברך את שם קודשך. ברכי נפשי את אדוני וכל קרבי את שם קודשו. האל בתעצומות עוזך, הגדול בכבוד שמך, אלוהים לנצח הנורא. המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא. שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננים צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נא בתהילה, בפי ישרים תתרומם, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתקדש, ובקרב קדושים תתהלל, ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, לעלה ולקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך.
Please rise in body or spirit.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל מלך הקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נערונה אלינו ולעבודנו אמותינו. שיר ושפחה הלל וזמרה, עוז הממשלה נצח אלה גבורה, תהילה ותפארת קדושה ומחול. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני.
Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema.
אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולמים.
Chetzi Kaddish is on page 245.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגאלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו
Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, Leolam U'amei Maya Yitbarach.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר וירומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה.
Richu.
בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ויאמרו
Amen. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. And the blessing gives us strength and makes our visions clear. And the blessing gives us peace and the courage to dare as we bless the source of life. So we are blessed. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed.
And we continue through the blessings following the Baruch Hu into the rest of the Shacharit service.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
The first blessing after Baruch Hu in the morning reflects the parallel blessing after the Baruch Hu in the evening, which are both blessings about the distinction between day and night, and appreciating that one of the most profound parts of creation is the passage of time itself, and that day becomes night, and night becomes day, and day becomes night. And it's so easy to become completely numb to it and expect it and see it as just a normal part of living, when the prayer that immediately after we begin, after Baruch Hu, is the first thing to do is to attune ourselves to the miracle of the passage of day into night and night into day, And none of us knows if we'll live to see another night or to see another day. And so we start with this blessing of deep gratitude for the thing that might be the most in the background to all of us all the time, which is that the day cycles. Each day we go into from night to day to night. So this blessing of Yotzer is the exact parallel to the blessing of Mariv Aravim, which is the evening service following the Baruch Hu, leading us into the blessings and preparing us to say the Shema itself. Page 253.
El Adon al kol ha'masim baruch u'mvorach b'fi kol neshama kolo v'tuvo male olam da'at u'tvuna ha'sovevim oto ha'mitgaeh al chayot ha'kodesh v'nehtar bechavod al ha'merkava zechut u'mishor lifnei chizo chesed berachamim lifnei chevodo Tovim me'orot shebara Eloheinu Yitzaram b'da'at b'vina uv'haskel Koach u'gvura natan bahem Liot moshlim b'kerev tevel Meleim ziv umfikim noga na'ezivam b'chol ha'olam Semechim b'tzeitcham b'tzasim b'voam Osim be'ema retzon konam Pe'er v'chavod notnim lishmo Tzol averina lezecher malchuto Kara l'shemesh v'yizrachor Ra'av hitkin surat halvana Shevach notnim lo kol tzva'am aharom Tiferet ugedula seraphim ve'ofanim bechayot hakodesh.
And we daven in Hebrew or English starting on page 267.
וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים באהבה רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח בשפה ברורה ובנימה קדושה כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה קדוש
Kadosh, Kadosh, Adonai Tzvaot, Melocho haaretz kevodo.
והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש קדום מתנשאים לעומת צרפים לעומתם משבחים ואומרים
Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo.
אל ברוך נעימות ייתנו למלך אל חי וקיים המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית כאמור לעושה אורים גדולים כי לעולם חסדו אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
And now we come to the first blessing before the Shema. Like in Mariv, it's about love. It's a different one than we do in the Mariv service, but love surrounds the saying of the Shema. That we can't understand love in our own lives without trying to access a sense of love that the universe, that the Holy One who was created has for us, and that we, in return, express love for the universe, for the One who has created us. So it starts in the morning with Ahava Rabbah, as the parallel to the Mariv exploration of love, to try and get us to be in a place where we feel loved. We feel love that's bigger than just a human being love, that we feel that the universe sees us and recognizes us The Holy One who has created us is happy with us, understands us to be in the place we need to be. Other places where the Holy One wants us to improve, that's in another place. Right now, we are in the place we need to be in the universe. And we have to feel it, we have to accept it, we have to accept ourselves, we have to be gentle with ourselves, we have to care for ourselves if we can get to a place of saying the Shema. So we start now with Ahava Rabbah, with an abounding, with an enormous, with an unconditional, with a continuing love. You love us.
Ahava Rabbah Haftanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla Gedola V'Teira Chamalta Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Ba'avor Avotenu B'imotenu Shebatchu V'cha Avinu Malkeinu ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו ותלמדנו אבינו האב הרחמן המרחם רחם עלינו ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה והאר עינינו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. At this point, we gather the four corners of our tallis to represent people all over the world as we bring them together. We continue at the asterisk in the middle of 275. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו קמיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת להודות לך ליחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed Ve'ahavta את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue silently with the next two paragraphs of the Shema through page 291. Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Amen.
On page 291, Michamocha, this moment where we express gratitude for the distance we have come from the worst things in our lives, from the worst of oppression, from the worst of slavery, teaching us the power of expressing joy and gratitude, even when we know there's a far road ahead. This might be one of the most difficult lessons in life, right? To be able to say, to give ourselves credit for what we've accomplished, even if we know we haven't achieved it all. Being proud, feeling a sense of gratitude for the Holy One's presence in our life, even if we haven't gotten rid of all the problems, even if we haven't achieved all the things we want to achieve, even if we haven't completely removed ourselves from the evil in our lives. This ability to pause and express joy, even appreciation for the distances we have come, and not only be distressed and sunk by the distances yet to go. This is the power, some of the power of prayer and the power of expressing these words that the Israelites said as they were leaving Egypt, but generations away from achieving full freedom. And maybe we are still those people looking for full freedom. So we look to our ancestors, the ability to sing and dance, to celebrate small steps and big steps, even when they aren't the complete steps. This is a curse also, I think, of humanity, and maybe modern people in particular, but maybe it's always been true, that we see how far there is to go, and we feel overwhelmed, we feel full of despair, we feel a sense of failure. It's so much easier to look ahead or look up the ladder we're climbing rather than to look down and appreciate how far we've come, or look behind us and look at our lives and look how much we've achieved, how much we've survived, how much we've pulled through, how much we've overcome, how much we've actually accomplished in our personal lives in this journey of life. And we tend to forget the pieces of the puzzle after they've been put in the puzzle and focus on the pieces that we still have to find. Micha Mocha is about pausing in a way that gives us credit, gives us gratitude, expresses an understanding that God has been with us, even if we feel a little bit abandoned or a lot abandoned in other places. So the ability to carry all of that is part of being a human being, and developing that sense of complex awareness of life. The ability to express that sense of pride in what we've done, even when we're aware of how far we have to go in all different places. So, Micha Mocha. Sam, where do we start? Can we start on 291?
291. Exactly.
291.
Yael, lai, 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 yael, lai, 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 ya, lai, 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 yael, lai, 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 yael, lai, 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 ya, lai, 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 lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יאל לי 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 לי, יאל לי 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 לי, יא לי 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 לי, יאל לי 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 לי, יאל לי לי לי, יאל לי 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 לי.
On the bottom of 291, when we repeat these words of Tzur Yisrael, we begin to stand. The idea is we always stand before the Amidah so that we're ready. There are things that we do to kind of show that we're eager to do something, and one of the things is the choreography for standing in the service. So when we come to the paragraph immediately before, we'll say the Chatzi Kaddish, which is on page, no, we don't do the Chatzi Kaddish here. Tzur Yisrael, we stand, preparing for the Amidah. The Amidah literally means standing, but of course, if one is not able to stand, it's fine to sit. But we are preparing ourselves, our bodies physically, by going into this central part of the service. And as everybody here, because your regulars know, but for those who don't, the Amidah is the prayer with the 7 blessings for the 7 days of the week, for the 7 days of creation. And the beginning and ending brachot are the same, whatever day we say this, the Amidah, and the change happens in the middle brachot. And the middle bracha, of course, is the bracha which will focus on Shabbat itself. So I'll show you on page 309, 307, Kedushat Hayom, which is the blessings for the day. So you can see there's a little daled, which is the number 4 in Hebrew, and a little number 4 inside the daled. Everybody see that if you have the book? I love this about the Reconstructionist book. So you see that means we're in the 4th blessing, because the first 3 are the blessings that repeat. The 4th is the special blessing for Shabbat. And then the final blessings are blessings that repeat whatever day. So the 4th blessing for Shabbat has in it, on page 308 and 309, the very specific reference to Shabbat itself, Yismechu. In the CBST original Siddur, Yismechu was done on Friday night. And my secret thing that I'll tell everybody is that when I did the CBST Friday night Siddur in 2000, whatever it was, 10 years ago, 11, we took it out of the Friday night Siddur, because Yismechu is really a Shabbat morning. It is the moment in the Amidah which we celebrate the words for which we celebrate Shabbat. If on Friday night we use V'shamru right before the Amidah, and then on Shabbat morning we use V'shamru as part of Kiddush, Shabbat morning's focused words that tell us it's Shabbat is this paragraph. This is the Shabbat morning celebration of Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, that's why there's a lot of great melodies for it. But because it's davened silently often, we don't notice it. So I'm pointing it out to you because it is key for Shabbat. That is every Shabbat morning, that's the focus for Shabbat. And then we will be doing Hallel and Al Hanisim for Gay Pride Shabbat. So for Tzur Yisrael, page 291, please stand if you're able, and then we'll say the first 3 brachot out loud of the Amidah, and then from the 4th bracha on, we do it individually.
Tzur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, ufdei chin umecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu Adonai tzevaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Elohei Bilha ve'Elohei Zilpa, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim ve'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה, אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי כל חי ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנת להחיות כל חי. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי כל חי.
נקדש את שמך.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה, ואמר,
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוכו הארץ כבודו.
אז בקור רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק, משמיעים קול, מתנשאים לעומת שרפים לעומתם, ברוך יאמרו.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראינה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה.
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך לא הנה מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני.
ברוך שמו.
האל הקדוש.
אמן.
shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו Amen.
On page 319 of the Siddur, if for folks who have it, and you see on the top of the page it has a little 7 inside a Hebrew letter of Zion, which is the 7th bracha of the 7 brachot of the Shabbat Amidah. This is the bracha for peace. The most ancient prayer we know of it in the Jewish, Christian, or Muslim tradition, because Christianity and Islam didn't exist when this prayer was written, and the first evidence we have it is from the year 900 before the Common Era. So it is the most ancient prayer that we are aware of in the Jewish tradition, which makes it the most ancient prayer of all three of those three religions from that area of Jerusalem. And so we pray this in the tradition of the Reconstructionist synagogue in Montreal, where Yael Cohen grew up, and she brought it to us when she was a Cooperberg-Rittmaster Rabbinical Intern, and we have been doing it all these years since then. We take our talitot, if we have it, and hold it up so that we can embrace each other with our blessings for peace. Okay, how cool is it that Zoom has a little pride border? So you can see with my talit, the pride border, okay, there's nothing, I kind of like some of the commercial elements of pride here. I'll admit it to all of you. And so Sam and I will lead everybody in this blessing for deep, profound peace.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך.
Okay, Yehi Ratzon. May the Holy One bless you and protect you.
יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך.
Yehi Ratzon. May the Eternal's face give light to you and show you favor.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. Shalom.
May the Eternal's face always be lifted toward each of you and bring you peace. If it's your custom, please use the chat to wish everybody Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, Chag Sameach, good morning. And we are going to, before we do Hallel, we are going to do Al Hanisim. And Dave Yedid finishing his first year as our Cooperberg-Rittmaster Rabbinical Intern, but thankfully will be returning in September for a second year. But this weekend is he's ending his year with us at CBST. Of course, we're making him come in for some things on this coming week, but this is his last Shabbat with us. Dave will lead us in the Al Hanisim written by Rabbi Yael Cohen, also when she was an intern at CBST, which is now used around the world as a way to celebrate Pride Shabbat.
על הניסים ועל הפורקן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו לאמותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. We thank you, Holy One, for the miraculous deliverance, the heroism, and the triumphs in the battle for our ancestors in other days and in our time. In the wake of the civil rights movement, lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, and transgender people began to organize for the dignity and justice that all of us are due as human beings on this earth. Those who profane your name, claiming that they hate us in the name of God, rose up to criminalize us, pathologize us, brutalize us, and erase us. And you, in your great mercy, stood with us in the time of our troubles. You fought alongside us, vindicated us, gave us the courage to stand together, to open our eyes and the eyes of the world around us, to see that the freedom and the right to love belongs to all of your creations. You have given us the strength to witness and create wonders, to be who we are and love whom we love, not only in the safety of our homes, but outside in the light of the world, to live as Jews in the embrace of community, to sanctify our unions and celebrate ourselves before each other and before you. The stone that the builders rejected has now become the cornerstone. May we never know shame again. Amen.
And now we turn to Hallel as part of our celebration of Pride Shabbat. And we're on page 357.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro et hahallel.
We're on page 361 for B'tzeit Yisrael. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim Beit Yaakov me'am loez Hayta Yehuda lekodsho Yisrael mamshelotav Hayam rav Ayanos Hayarden yisov le'achor Heharim rakedu che'elim Gevaot kivnei tzon Malecha hayam
Malecha hayam
Kitanus
Itanus
Hayarden
Hayarden
Tisov le'achor
Tisov le'achor
Heharim
Heharim
Tirkedu che'elim
Tirkedu che'elim
Gevaot
Gevaot
Kivnei tzon
Kivnei tzon
Milifnei Adon
Milifnei Adon
Chuli aretz
Chuli aretz Milifnei
Elohai Yaakov
Elohai Yaakov
Hahofchi Hatzur
Hahofchi Hatzur
Agamayim
Agamayim
Chalamish
Chalamish
Lemaiноmayim
Lemaiноmayim. And we move now to the last Hebrew line on the bottom of 373. Oziv Zimrat Yah Vayhili Lishua. My strength, my song is Yah, is God, who was for me a source of help. Oziv וזמרת יהי לי לישועה. עוזי 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 וזמרת יהי לי לישועה. We turn now to the English paragraph on page 378, and we join together. Let all your works give praise to you, majestic one, our God, and all who care for you, all the righteous who enact your will. Let all the house of Israel, your people, with rejoicing offer thanks and bless and praise and magnify and raise up and revere and declare holy and enthrone your name, our sovereign. For to you all thanks are fitting, and to your name it is so pleasing to sing praise. For far from everlasting to everlasting you are God. Blessed are you, abundant one, the sovereign, addressed in every praise. Baruch atah Adonai, melech mehulal batishbachot. Amen.
Page 381 for Kaddish Shalem.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
ועלמא דברי חירותי והמליך מלכותי בחיי חון ויומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואימרו.
Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam U'al Me'omaya Yitbarach.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה.
Richu.
בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואימרו.
Amen.
אמן. תקבל צולות הון ובאות הון דכל בית ישראל קודם אבו הון די ושמיה ואימרו.
Amen.
אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואימרו.
Amen.
אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואימרו.
Amen.
And now we turn to the Torah service, and Eileen Block. No, Sam, who's doing the Torah service? Dave, Sam, Eileen Block?
I'll be our Gabbai, our service
Okay.
leader for the Torah service section. And we begin on page 383 with In Kamocha. And then we will invite Eileen Block to our virtual Bima on page 387.
Beautiful. Lovely. What a team. What a team. Good Shabbos, everybody.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אב הרחמים, היטיבה ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים, כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך ארם ונישא, אדון עולמים.
We turn to page 387, the paragraph at the bottom of the page, and we invite Eileen Block to our virtual bima. Welcome, Eileen. Good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom. Be'anarachetz velishme kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana amar tushbechan. Be'anarachetz, be'anarachetz velishme kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Ana Amar Tushbechan, Yehera Ava Kodamach, Tetiv Tach Libi Beoraita, Vetashli Mishalim Delibi, Veliba Dechol Amach Yisrael, Letabul Chayin Velishlam. Amen.
And we continue, thank you, Eileen, on page 393 with the responsive Shema and Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
And we turn to page 395 where we welcome all of our Torah readers up. Vayazor ve'agen v'hoshea lecho chasim bo v'nomar
Amen.
Hakol havu godel Eloheinu tnu kavod laTorah Ya'amdu kol hakorim Baruch shenatan Torah lemo Yisrael b'kedushato.
ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום.
ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום. So we have a very special Torah reading today. We will be reading both Parshat Balak, which is our Parshat of the Shavua, which is the book of Numbers, chapter 22. I'll put the Sefaria link in the chat in just a minute. And then we have special Maftir and Haftorah readings for our Pride Shabbat. Then we'll have a special blessing before the Maftir, read by Mitchell Bloom. So this will work in a second. I'll invite Leslie Bernstein, who's our first reader, to the blessing opening for the Torah service. And then we'll move through all of our readers through the 7th Aliyah, and Rabbi Joe will close with after the 7th Aliyah. And we'll be sharing screen with our CBST Sefer Torah. So I hope that seeing the words in the actual cloth is meaningful to you.
And I want to add something to give credit. Some of you might remember where did we come up with the idea of a special Maftir reading for Pride Shabbat? Folks remember our Cooperberg-Rittmaster Rabbinical Intern Cece's husband, remember Gabe, who was a fabulous Torah reader and did a lot of Torah reading for some of our regulars. You might remember Gabe. It was Gabe's idea. So I like acknowledging the way different fantastic new ideas have come into CBST. Cece's now a rabbi in New Jersey, still part of our extended CBST community. And I love remembering that Gabe came up with the idea of bringing in a maftir reading, which is a traditional thing to do in Judaism. It's not we have maftir readings that have special connections to what the holiday is, in addition to what the weekly reading is. So in that way, Gabe was using it again, like Yael Cohen did, using a traditional form to bring in this new celebration. So who here remembers Cece and Gabe? I'm curious if we have any people here. Yep, so you remember that was the first time we did this maftir. So we're thrilled. It was Rabbi Cohen's idea for us. There we go. See, this is how we need the oral tradition here. So Neil and Andy, or one of them, it was Rabbi Cohen's idea for the special haftarah for Pride, and Gabe said to Rabbi Cohen, "What? No special maftir?" I love that. Okay, so that is, we need to add that to the next book about CBST. But it's good for this minyan to remember how these traditions develop and the roles that we want to do at B'Shem Amram, in the name of people who came up with these great new ideas. So, all right, there you go. Rabbi Cohen, Gabe, and here we are. Many generations later.
Machloket l'shem shemayim.
Yeah, well, it's good. See, this is why I appreciate our community so much. Thanks, Neil or Andy, whoever it was. Was it Neil? Yeah, it was Neil. Okay. Thank you, Neil.
And we call up to our virtual bima Leslie Bernstein for our first aliyah, which will be Numbers 22, verses 2 to 4. Good Shabbos, Leslie. Happy Pride.
Shabbos, happy Pride.
Hold on, can I say something else about that? Notice that was two straight people who came up with the idea of a new haftarah and a new maftir. And there's a lot of Torah in that. And the power of having a community that is broad and deep. We have teachers of Torah from every possible sexual orientation and gender identity, and we're grateful for that. Okay, moving it over to you. I'll stop talking. I'm going to put myself on mute.
Thanks, Rabbi. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Korvanu La'avodato V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayar Balak ben Tzipor et kol asher asa Yisrael la'am la'emori. Vayagor Mo'av mipnei ha'am me'od ki rav hu. Vayakutz Mo'av mipnei b'nei Yisrael. Vayomer Mo'av el ziknei Midian. Ata Yilachachu akahal et kol sevivotenu ki yilcho chashor et yerek hasadeh. Uvalak ben Tzipor melech leMoav ba'etahi.
Yasher Koach. Thank you, Leslie. Our second aliyah will be read by Elizabeth Wilson, which is verses 5 through 7. Good Shabbos.
Dave, Elizabeth is actually on a different computer that has a different name. I'm going to mute myself again.
Great.
We have a very complex laning setup here.
Great. Thanks for making it work in your household. We really appreciate it. Many devices, one Torah.
All right, I am asking, there we go, Liz Wilson Lane.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Wait, that's... Wait, no.
Sam Gabay Shani, can you show Elizabeth where we're beginning? Yeah, see Sam's cursor?
Where we are?
You begin with Vayishlach, verse 5.
Vayishlach Malachim.
I begin with verse 5. 1 second.
All right, Elizabeth, we'll give you one more minute, make sure you're in the right place. But we invented a Gabbai Shlishi, a brand new Zoom innovation for our online minion that Sam is ready to lane an aliyah due to lack of connectivity in any sense.
If need be, yes.
Okay, we'll have our Gabbai Shlishi read these 3 verses.
וישלח מלאכים אל בלעם בן באור פטורה אשר על הנהר ארץ בני עמי לקרוא לו לאמור הנה עם יצא ממצרים הנה כיסא את עין הארץ והוא יושב ממולי ואתה לך נערה לי את העם הזה כי עצום הוא ממני ואולי אוכל נקה בו ואגר שנו מן הארץ כי ידעתי את אשר תברך מבורך ואשר תאור יואר וילכו זקני מואב וזקני מדיין וקסמים בידם ויבואו אל בלעם וידברו אליו דברי בלק. I had Haftarah stuck in my head, but I couldn't get back totally, but we can now go to the third.
Yashar koach. No worries about mix-ups. Totally happens. We are a community that takes care of each other.
We celebrate the spirituality of imperfection, Sam.
Thank you. I've got Haftarah on my mind.
That's okay.
San Francisco.
Thank you for being our pinch hitter. Our third aliyah continues.
Yeah.
We have Andy Engel reading verses 8 through 12. Good Shabbos, Engel Hoffman family. Hoffman Engel family.
Vayomer alehem linufo halayla v'hashivoti etchem davar kasher yidaber Adonai elai vayeshvu sarei Moav im Bil'am vayavo Elohim el Bil'am vayomer mi ha'anashim ha'ele imach Vayomer Bil'am el ha'Elohim Balak ben Zippor Melech Moav shalach elai Hine ha'am hayotze mimitzrayim Vayichas et ein haaretz I'ata lecha kavali oti oto Ulai uchal hilachem bo v'gerashtiv Vayomer Elohim el Bil'am לא תלך עמהם, לא תאור את העם, כי ברוך הוא.
Yasher Koach. And Neil has the next aliyah, which is the verses 13 to 20.
ויקם בלעם בבוקר, ויאמר אל שרי בלק, לכו אל ארצכם, כי מעין אדוני לתיתי להלוך עמכם. ויקומו שרי מואב, ויבואו אל בלק, ויאמרו מעין בלעם, הלוך עמנו. ויוסף עוד בלק, שלוח שרים רבים ונכבדים מאלה, ויבואו אל בלעם, ויאמרו לו, כה אמר בלק בן ציפור, אל נא תימנע מהלוך אלי, כי כבד אכבדך מאוד, בכל אשר תאמר אלי אעשה, ולכנה קבלי את העם הזה. ויען בלעם, ויאמר אל עבדי בלק, אם ייתן לי בלק מלוא ביתו כסף וזהב, לא אוכל לעבור את פי אדוני אלוהה, לעשות קטנה או גדולה, ועתה שבו נא בזה. גם אתם הלילה, ואדע מה יוסף אדוני דבר עמי. ויבוא אלוהים אל בלעם לילה, ויאמר לו, אם לקרוא לך באו אנשים, קום לך איתם, ואך את הדבר אשר אדבר אליך, אותו תעשה.
Yasher Koach, Neil and Andy, thank you for your reading. Our fifth aliyah will be read by Saul Zalkin, and it's verses 21 to 27. Good Shabbat, Saul.
Shabbat Shalom, happy Pride. Vayakam Bil'am ba'boker, vayachabosh et atono, vayelech im sarei Moab, vayicha'af Elohim, ki holechu, vayityatzef malach Adonai, vaderech l'satan lo, והוא רוכב על אתונו, ושני נעריו עמו, ותרא האתון, את מלאך אדוני ניצב בדרך, וחרבו שלופה בידו, ותט האתון מן הדרך, ותלך בשדה, ויך בלעם את האתון, והטוטה הדרך, ויעמוד מלאך אדוני במשעול הכרמים, גדר מזה וגדר מזה, ותרא האתון את מלאך אדוני, ותלחץ אל הקיר, ותלחץ את רגל בלעם אל הקיר, ויוסף להכותה, ויוסף מלאך אדוני עבור. ויעמוד במקום צר, אשר אין דרך לנטות ימין ושמאל, ותרא האתון את Malach Adonai Batir Bat Tachat Bilam Vayecha Bilam Vayach Et Ha'aton B'makel.
Yasher Koach Saul, thank you for your reading. We will be studying this piece in our Torah discussion after our reading, so just a heads up. Our next reader is Jonathan Adler, reading Aliyah 6, verses 28 to 30. Happy Pride, Jonathan.
Happy Pride, Dave. Vayiftach Adonai et pi ha'aton, vatomer levil'am me asiti lecha, ki hikitani ze shalosh regalim, vayomer bil'am la'aton, ki hitalalt bi, lo yesh cherev biyadi, ki ata haragtich, vatomer ha'aton el bil'am, halo anochi atonecha, asher agavta alai, meodecha ad hayom hazeh, hahaskein hiskanti, לעשות לך kol vayomer lo.
Yasher Koach, Jonathan. And our seventh Aliyah is Rabbi Joe Wilson, reading Numbers 22, 31 to 38, and then the closing blessing. Good Shabbos. Happy Pride.
Good Shabbos, happy Pride. Vayagel Adonai et einei v'olam, vayab malach Adonai nitzav baderech, v'chabo shlufa b'yado, vayikol v'yishtachu le'apav, vayomer elav malach Adonai alma ikita adatonecha ze shalosh regalim hine anochi yatzati lesatan yarat haderech lenegi atirani ha'aton ותד לפניי זה שלוש רגלים, אולי נתת מפניי, כי אתה גם אותך הרגתי ואותה החייתי. ויאמר בלעם למלאך אדוני חטאתי, כי לא ידעתי, כי אתה ניצב לקראתי בדרך, ואתה אמרה בעיניך אשובה לי. ויאמר מלאך אדוני אל בלעם, לך עם האנשים ואפס את הדבר אשר אדבר אליך אותו תדבר. וילך בלעם עם שרי בלק, וישמע בלק כי בא בלעם, ויצא לקראתו אל עיר מואב, אשר גבול ארנון, אשר בקצה הגבול. ויאמר בלק אל בלעם, הלא Shalach shalachti elecha likro lach. Lama lo halachti elai ha'umnam lo uchal kabadecha. Vayoma bilam el balak. Nefati elecha ata ayachol uchal daber me'umar adava asher yasim Elohim befi oto.
Oto adaber.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet chaye olam nata betuchenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yesher Koach, Rabbi Joe, and can we get a Zoom cheer, a Yesher Koach for all of our dedicated readers? Thank you so much for bringing this mitzvah to our Shabbos and on Pride Shabbat especially. We now move into our Pride section readings, and I'll be chanting 5 verses from the book of Genesis, of Bereshit, about the rainbow that Noach sees. And from what I understand, there's some special blessings that Mitchell will be reading before and after the reading. Good Shabbos, Mitchell.
Good Shabbos.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Is it special or it's just the Torah blessing?
Just the Torah blessing.
Just the Torah. Okay. That was something. Baruch hu et Adonai hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vayomer Elohim, Zot ot habrit, asher ani noten, beini uvenechem, uvein, kol nefesh chaya, asher itchem, ledorot olam. Et kashti natati ba'anan, v'haita leot brit, beini uvein haaretz. V'haya be'anani anan al haaretz, v'nirata hakeshet ba'anan. V'zacharti et briti, asher beini uve'enechem uve'en kol nefesh chaya b'chol basar, v'lo yihye od hamayim lamabul, לשחט כל בשר, והייתה הקשת בענן, וראיתיה לזכור ברית עולם, בין אלוהים ובין כל נפש חיה בכל בשר אשר על הארץ. ויאמר אלוהים אל נוח, זאת אות בריתי אשר הקימותי ביני ובין כל בשר אשר על הארץ. And Mitchell, when you're ready, you can close the blessing to the Aliyah. Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And we go from the story of the rainbow to our Haftorah, which is in the first book of Samuel, chapter 20, verses 27 to 42, which details this homoerotic story between David, and Jonathan in the Torah. And you'll see there's kissing, there's weeping, and this is our Pride Haftorah, read by Cantorial Intern Rosen.
Thank you, Dave. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. ויהי ממחרת החודש השני, ויפקד מקום דוד, ויאמר שאול אל יהונתן בנו, מדוע לא בא ונישי גם תמול גם היום אל הלחם. ויען יהונתן את שאול, נשאל דוד, מעמדי עד בית לחם. ויאמר שלחני נא, כי זבח משפחה לנו בעיר, והוא ציווה לי אחי, ואתה אם מצאתי חן בעיניך, ואם מלת נא ואראה את אחי, על כן לא בא אל שולחן המלך. ויחר אף שאול ביונתן, ויאמר לו בן נאוות המרדות, הלא ידעתי כי בוחר אתה לבן ישי, ולבשתך ולבושת ערוות אמך. כי כל הימים אשר בן ישי חי על האדמה, לא תיכון אתה ומלכותך, ואתה שלח וקח אותו אלי, כי בן מוות הוא. ויען יהונתן את שאול אביו, ויאמר אליו, למה יומת מעשה? ויתל שאול את החנית עליו להכותו, וידע יהונתן כי חלה היא מעם אביו להמית את דוד. ויקום יהונתן מעם השולחן בכורי אף, ולא אכל ביום החודש השני לחם, כי נצב אל דוד, כי החלימו אביו. ויהי בבוקר, ויצא יהונתן השדה למועד דוד, ונער קטון עמו. ויאמר לנערו, רוץ, מצא נא את החיצים אשר אנוכי מורה. הנער רץ, והוא ירה החצי להעבירו. ויבוא הנער עד מקום החצי אשר ירה יהונתן, ויקרא יהונתן אחרי הנער, ויאמר, הלא החצי ממך והלאה. ויקרא יהונתן אחרי הנער, מהרה חושה אל תעמוד, וילקט נער יהונתן את החיצים, ויבוא אל אדוניו. והנער לא ידע מאומה, אך יהונתן ודוד ידעו את הדבר. ויתן יהונתן את כליו אל הנער אשר לו, ויאמר לו, לך הווה העיר. הנער בא ודוד קם מאצל הנגב, ויפול לאפיו ארצה, וישתחו 3 פעמים, וישקו איש את רעהו, ויבכו איש את רעהו, עד דוד הגדיל. ויאמר יהונתן לדוד, לך לשלום, אשר נשבענו שנינו אנחנו בשם אדוני לאמור, אדוני יהיה ביני וביניך ובין זרעי ובין זרעך עד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמרים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו.
אמן.
רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעמוד ישראל תושיע במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
משמח ציון בבניה.
אמן.
שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, והשיב לב אבות על בנים ולב בנים על אבותם, וביתך בית תפילה יקרא לכל העמים, ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
מביא שלום לעד.
אמן.
על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו.
מקדש השבת.
Amen. Yasher Koach, Sam, thank you for reading that really beautiful and emotional love story, painful love story. We move from the Parshat of Balak and our pride readings into our prayer for healing, for refuah. So in a moment, I'll read the names that we have in our Shabbat program, and then I'll also create a pause while I'm reading the Mishaberach itself for people to add names to the chat of those they're praying for healing, physical, emotional, spiritual. This week, CBST prays for the healing of Michael Bruce Berman, Ron Cohen, Danny Ettinger, Yaakov ben Golda v'Shlomo, Yehuda Aryeh ben Golda v'Yitzchak, Anne Gregory, Lori Krotman, Harvey Lubitz, Saul Mizrahi, Joel Moses, Nahum Neve, Stanley Perlberg, Chris Pelletieri, Susan Ricken, Batya Segura, Urvashi Vaid, Rose Wanan, Nechama Bat Yaakov Uvernis. And I invite you now to write all the names in the chat of people you're praying for healing for. Mi sheberach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem lahachlimam u'lirapotam lahachzikam u'lahachyotam v'yishlach lahem refuah shlema min hashamayim refuat hanefesh u'refuat haguf b'toch shar cholei Yisrael v'kol yoshvei tevel hashta bagalawi v'zvan kariv v'nomar amen.
Amen.
Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We invite our two dedicated and wonderful Liberal Minyan co-coordinators, Neil Hoffman and Liz Gals, to read the prayer for healers and prayer for our country. So we'll share screen in a second to put up the slide, and Neil will read the prayer for healers.
May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those who put themselves at risk to care for the sick, physicians and nurses and orderlies, technicians and home health aides, EMTs and pharmacists, hospital social workers and respiratory therapists, who navigate the unfolding dangers of the world each day to tend to those they have sworn to help. Bless them in their coming home and bless them in their going out. Ease their fear, sustain them, source of all breath, healer of all beings, protect them and restore their hope. Strengthen them that they may bring strength. Keep them in health that they may bring healing. Help them know again a time when they can breathe without fear. Bless the sacred work of their hands. May this plague pass from among us speedily and in our days.
Amen. Thank you, Neil. Dr. Neil. We now read the prayer for our country. Good Shabbos, Liz.
Good Shabbos. Dave, could you make it a little bigger? I think the bottom part is missing.
We might do it as you read.
Oh, okay. Our God and God of our ancestors, bless this country and all who dwell within it. Help us to experience the blessings of our lives and our circumstances, to be vigilant, compassionate, and brave. Strengthen us when we are afraid. Help us to channel our anger so that it motivates us to action. Help us to feel our fear so that we do not become numb. Help us to be generous with others so that we raise each other up. Help us to be humble in our fears, knowing that as vulnerable as we feel, there are those at greater risk, and that it is our holy work to stand with them. Help us to taste the sweetness of liberty, to not take for granted the freedoms won in generations past or in recent days, to heal and nourish our democracy, that it may be like a tree planted by the water, whose roots reach down to the stream, It need not fear drought when it comes. Its leaves are always green.
Thank you. We now move into some Torah, and it's my last bit of Torah before I, actually not quite, but my last Shabbat bit of Torah before I head off for the summer. So this portion and something we read was about Balaam striking his donkey, and I want to look at this passage in English and ask a question about whether animals are religious. Do animals have religion? And when I say, are animals religious, I guess my question is, do animals communicate with the divine? Do they understand the divine? And yeah, we're going to dive into the text. I see the chat is lighting up. I want to, yes, thank you, Neil and Liz, for your leadership. It's been really special to coordinate with you before Shabbat, and I felt so welcomed by you both this whole year. So thanks. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And I will ask for one volunteer in English to read the passage, and I will scroll down with you. I see Stacy. So the question is, are animals religious? And we have 12 verses that we're going to look at. So Stacy, whenever you're ready.
God was incensed, right?
Yep.
Okay. God was incensed at his going, so an angel of God was placed in his way as an adversary. Balaam was riding on his donkey with his 2 servants alongside when the donkey caught sight of the angel of God standing in the way with a drawn sword in his hand. The donkey swerved from the road and went into the fields. Balaam beat the donkey to turn her back onto the road. The angel of God was stationed in a lane between the vineyards with a fence on either side. The donkey, seeing the angel of God, pressed herself against the wall and squeezed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he beat her again. Once more, the angel of God moved forward and stationed himself on a spot so narrow that there was no room to swerve right or left. When the donkey now saw the angel of God, she lay down under Balaam, and Balaam was furious and beat the donkey with his stick. Then God opened the donkey's mouth, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times?" Balaam said to the donkey, "You have made a mockery of me. If I had a sword with me, I'd kill you." The donkey said to Balaam, "Look, I am the donkey that you have been riding all along until this day. Have I been in the habit of doing thus to you?" And he answered, "No." Then God uncovered Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of God standing in the way with a drawn sword in his hand. Thereupon he bowed right down to the ground. The angel of God said to him, "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? It is I who came out as an adversary, for the errand is obnoxious to me. And when the donkey saw me, she shied away because of me those 3 times. If she had not shied away from me, you are the one I should have killed, while sparing her." Balaam said to the angel of God, "I erred because I did not know that you were standing in my way."
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you reading.
Happy Pride, everybody.
Thanks. So I have the text here, and I created some questions. I know we'll have to get off the text in a minute, and I will work on sending you the Google Doc link so you have access to it. So we have this strange talking animals, animal abuse. We have sort of these different levels of God and the angel, and the owner of the donkey and the donkey herself. So My questions are, is there something strange about the animal speaking in this passage? And what do you make of the donkey's vision of the messenger? We'll start with those two and we can move to the next. Sarah, go ahead. I don't know if I have to ask you to unmute.
There we go. You did. It's okay. So I read every week from a book called Torah Queries, Queer Commentary on the week's Torah portion. And I wish I could remember better. I read it early this morning, but it said something about how there's a continuum of holiness, and it sort of put animals in the middle, below humans and angels, but above bugs and plants, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I thought maybe that could apply here, that the donkey is not totally not spiritual, not the angel and not the human, but it's got something.
Yeah, and thanks for giving us that concept of the continuum. You know, I think something really interesting is happening here, where I feel like that continuum is being a little bit blurred. I'm curious to hear from more voices from the group today, our congregation. Do we feel like the animal is more holy than the human in this story, or vice versa? Liz, and then Rabbi Joan Elizabeth.
I really love that the donkey has this fabulous conversation with Balaam and says, look, I'm acting really differently than I normally do. Have I ever done this before? And, why do you think I'm doing this? Like, the donkey is calling on Balaam to be a better person. And so I think that's like an example of the donkey's enlightenment.
Yeah, I totally see that. There is something about the animal who we think as being sort of less holy teaching the human being how to be moral or how to be holy. And thank you, Liz. Rabbi Joe?
Hi. So I have a couple of thoughts. So one is that I don't really subscribe to a view of hierarchies of holiness among different living things. I think I'm more in the interconnected web of life camp. And I love, in response to your first question, as Dorina already pointed out in the chat, this passage does not indicate that there's anything odd about the animal talking. And Elizabeth just said that your question, are animals religious, it feels very apropos in our household. So I'm just going to share, for what it's worth, that we have several times worked with an animal communicator who has helped us understand what's going on with our cats, and even with the chickens and the gerbils. She will talk to all different kinds of animals, and I could talk at length one-on-one about that if anyone wants to know more. But the other thing I just wanted to say is I'm a hospital chaplain, and it's not uncommon for me to encounter Christian patients who have a theology that involves both God and the devil or Satan. And I think that especially in behavioral health settings, there's sometimes an instinct among healthcare providers to really pathologize people who have a theology that includes Satan. But it's actually, almost always in my experience, it's actually a really functional theology. It's a way of hearing the calls for us to fulfill our potential, and the calls for us to really step off the path that we would actually like to be living. It kind of divides those two things into separate voices, and it actually really helps people, I think, make sense of their lives and navigate the challenges that they're experiencing. And we do have a similar concept in Judaism, Yetzer Hara and Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination and the bad inclination. So that was the other thought that I had about the adversary who shows up.
Wow, thanks. I'm very curious to hear more about, maybe another time, the animal communicator. I think my friend is trained to do that, actually. I also saw this research about monkeys who like mourn their dead and cry when someone among their community dies. And something I wanted to respond to one thing you said about the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Hatov. I feel like the donkey is both being the Yetzer Hatov for Bilam in the story, but also oftentimes humans inflict our Yetzer Hara onto animals as the victims of our own. Animals can be mirrors to us in terms of our own abuse or things like that. Thank you, Rabbi Joe. I see Saul and Leslie's hand up. So Saul and then Leslie.
So when you first asked the questions, I thought about the snake in the garden and the whale in Jonah, and about how Hashem uses animals as a way of communicating with us because we're not listening. Hashem has spoken to Balaam several times already to say not to go, and yet Balaam thinks he can get around it and goes off on his way. But like Rabbi Joe, I was rather astounded always by the fact that Balaam is not shocked that his donkey is talking to him. He talks back to the donkey. He doesn't even say, "Oh my God, my donkey is talking." And I think, well, if he's used to his donkey talking to him, why didn't he speak to the donkey instead of beating the donkey? Which leads us into a whole thing about how, humans, they expect their animals to do. I mean, I don't have a pet anymore. I used to have a bird decades ago, but they expect their animals to do what the human thinks they should do. And often they get very angry when the animal doesn't and forget that the animal has a way that is their own.
Yeah.
And things would work better with sugar than with pounding.
Yeah, it's true. Saul, something you're reminding me of is just in last week's parsha where Moses strikes the rock instead of speaking to it. I know a rock is not an animal, but if a rock is a non-living thing, but water is a living thing, there's a way in which Moses was too harsh in wanting the water to come out and was angry at that moment and was punished for it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Saul. Leslie?
Okay. First of all, I love this conversation. Thanks, everybody. Just want to add an anecdote. That the ass is seeing the angel first. When I worked at Calvary Hospital, which also deals with hospice, I was in a group. We had a facility dog, and there were a few people in the room. This woman was clearly in crisis, and the dog just quietly walked over to her before anybody really said anything and just sat by her. And it was such a beautiful moment. Perception on that animals.
Yeah. Thanks for that story. I've also worked with therapy canines, and it's amazing how intuitive they are to people's needs. And sometimes animals not speaking to us and giving us comfort is what we need and not someone to, engage verbally. Goodbye, Ron. Good Shabbos. I see, there is something in this story. Is there any other comments before we conclude about any reactions or thoughts about this text? Stacy, and then we can close. Stacy, are you able to unmute?
Okay. Thank you. For some reason or other, it wasn't allowing me to unmute. I just think having a cat, I sometimes tend to just say to myself, wow, because we're both trying to communicate to each other. He's trying to say something, and I'm like, can my prayer is for me to understand cat language and for him to understand English, but they are very intuitive. They are, as you said, animals. I believe animals have their own soul, and they're all part of humanity. I agree with Joe that I don't like the idea, because we don't understand something, We think that another species is lower than us because we don't know what they understand. But they might understand much more than we do.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, I think I love this passage because I feel like it shows us that there's nothing crazy in the Torah about animals speaking. And it also shows, if we had this idea, there is a hierarchy of holiness between humans and animals, that the hierarchy in the Torah with God and God's angels, of course, on top, can be blurred. So animals can experience the divine before humans do. And animals can also teach humans how to be holy. And I've had some very sacred interactions with animals in my own life. And I think there's so much more research coming out about how animals grieve and feel, and also even how trees communicate and share resources. And I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg of this. And I feel like there's this glimpse in our Torah of this interconnective framework that's not hierarchical. Or if there is a hierarchy in the Torah, it's blurred at certain moments. I want to also bring us to a different part of the Parsha in which Balak, is asked to curse the Israelites, but when, upon seeing the congregation, we see the verse, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov umishkenotecha Yisrael. How beautiful are the tents of Jacob and the dwellings of the Israelites. And this is my last Shabbat for a couple months, so I just want to extend gratitude to the entire Liberal Minyan community. I know that this year has come with the potential for a lot of curses. It has been a year of loss for me personally. Many of you know that I had to relocate to England with my partner when there was a bereavement in his family. And I know it's been a year of communal loss for both people in the CBST community and for so many of us in our own networks. And it's really been energizing and special to see Ma Tovu Panehem. It's so great every other Shabbat morning to see your Zoom faces and your homes and hear words of Torah and hear words of Torah chanted from the klaf, and to be under this canopy of Talitot with you. And I really feel at home in Liberal Minyan, and I'm grateful to all of you for creating that home for me. Good Shabbos. Happy Pride.
Thank you, Dave, for these beautiful words of Torah and for all the words of Torah you've shared with our community, sometimes in very public modes through your teachings and your Divrei Torah and your drashot, and sometimes in very private spaces. I know so many people in this room have had individual conversations with you where they have had the experience of your undivided attention and your words of Torah directed exactly to where they are in their lives. And so we thank you for all of the public and all of the quiet, private ways that you've been planting Torah in our lives over the past year. And we're gonna miss you for a couple months, but we'll see you soon. Our service continues with honoring these words of Torah as a tree of life to those who hold it fast. And so on page 441, Mitchell Bloom will be leading us in Eitz Chaim.
Etz Chaim hi lamazikim ba vetomchea meusha dehohea darchenom b'chonotivotea shalom Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
It's a tree of life to them who hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are Happy, it's a tree of life to them who hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. It's a tree. Just want to add my gratitude to Dave Yedid for this year. Last night, Dave came to services at CBST for the first time in person in his internship. What a hard thing to start a job in the middle of this pandemic. And Dave came, nobody has seen his legs all these many, many months. And he's a lot taller than anybody here realizes. That's all I'm going to tell you. So Dave, it's been such a pleasure to have you this year, and there are not so many people who could have done what you did, to join the community in the middle of a pandemic and to become such a beloved part of the community, a great teacher, a wonderful leader, a wonderful part of our clergy team. And it's just been wonderful watching you and Sam develop such a beautiful relationship as leaders of this minyan. And Sam continues with us this summer and continues with us next year. So we're delighted that Sam and his beautiful leadership will continue at CBST in all the different ways, and that Dave will return. And as I mentioned last night, our new intern is a fifth-year rabbinical student at Boston Hebrew College named Yael Werber. And Dave and Yael have already been in touch and met each other and are already communicating and getting to know each other. So Yael will be beginning with us on August 18th. A little bit earlier than our usual beginning for new interns, but because Rosh Hashanah is September 5th this year, she's beginning on August 18th, so she can get a chance to learn her way around slightly before we begin Yamim Noraim. So Yael Werber will be beginning with us. We sent out an email, way back in March, but we will in September with more information about her. And all of you will get to know her as well in this coming year. And last night we wished well to our Rabbi Deborah Megdal, who is now leaving us after 3 years at CBST working with us. And she's going to Bethesda to become an associate rabbi there of a very, very wonderful conservative synagogue in Bethesda, Maryland. So she's now, so the year, Pride Shabbat is always the year in which CBST's intern, I just realized, Neil, that it's very similar to medical, right? Don't all medical residencies start July 1st? But for some of ours, they actually start September 1st. But the end of June is when we say goodbye. Everybody knows that. Don't go to a hospital in July, right? Everybody knows that rule. Is that true everywhere in the world or just New York City? Is it? It's everywhere, right? Don't go to a hospital in the beginning of July in the United States. That's my tip. Okay, and here we go. So Dave is going to lead us through the end of today's service.
Thank you, Rabbi Kleinbaum. We continue with Aleinu on page 445 in our Sidurim.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We take a moment to honor those we've lost for the mourner's Kaddish. We send condolences to CBST member Sharon on the death of her friend Joan Klein, who died on June 20th. We have yard sites of members Nahum Braverman, Willett Fields, Sheldon Kershaw, and Bart Rubenstein. We also mark the yard sites of family and friends of CBST members Martin Alpert, Jack Best, Craig Bross, Gisela Graham, Sarah Jacobs, Sylvia Kossow-Sidney, Esther Labaton, Frida Levitz, Marcus Mirsky, Daniel Rosenberg, Henry Rosenblum, Harry Rosenfeld, and Lillian Wolfe. I invite you to add names into the chat of people that you're remembering, either for their Shiva, Shloshim, or Yartzeit. If it is your custom, we invite you to stand in body or in spirit to recite the mourner's Kaddish, or if it is your custom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei. B'chayachon uvyomechon ub'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala ubizman kariv v'imru. Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya yitbarach.
Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam ulmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudesha. Brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru.
Amen.
Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'ramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. We now have announcements from our Liberal Minyan co-coordinator, Liz Galst.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And thank you for such a beautiful service, Sam and Dave and Rabbi Kleinbaum and Rabbi Rapport. It's just always such an honor to be led by you guys. And thank you also to our Torah readers. These are not in Aliyah order, but Saul and Leslie, Joe, Jonathan, Neil, and Elizabeth for preparing her Aliyah, and Sam for landing it. And Sam as well for a really beautiful rendition of that Haftarah. We have, as always, many exciting things coming up at CBST and in our extended community. Tonight, Havdalah begins at 8:30. And I think after that, it's going to be at 9 o'clock because it's the summer. And how great is that? Tomorrow at noon, in lieu of an outdoor in-person Pride event, we're going to have Jew York Pride starting at noon. Celebrate Queer Jewish Pride with JQY, BY, BBYO. I always get that confused with BYOB. CVST, Marlene Meyerson, JCC of Manhattan, Keshet, and the UJA Federation. There will be drag artists, dance, youth activists, and we are honored that Rabbi Kleinbaum will offer deep words of wisdom and pride on this meaningful day. Starting on Monday, Rabbi Kleinbaum's.
Okay, that's quite a thing to live up to.
I was just thinking with the drag queens.
Well, it's so funny. I spoke to the organizers and I said to them, give me a sense of it. They said, just remember, most of the people are very, very, it's a young crowd. So I said, okay, a 10-minute Devar Torah. No, they said 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's what we can handle is 2 minutes. So
maybe a TikTok.
Just everybody here, if you come, remember I was given a 2-minute, which for me, I can't even say hello in 2 minutes, but I got a 2-minute limitation. And by the way, sorry, Liz, for interrupting.
No.
Neil, I just read what you wrote. I take it back. Everybody go to the hospital. I am so sorry for saying that. Yes, that's the time when the residents are supervised the best. In August, they ignore the residents, but July is good. Okay, sorry about that. Of course, hospitals in New York are always safe. So I take that back. Sorry, Liz, go ahead. Sorry.
Rabbi, your Psalm study class continues on Monday from 9:45 to 10:45. What else have we got going on? There's a great event. Why Pride in Jerusalem Matters. This is happening at noon with Rabbi Moskowitz and Noam Yavin, chair of the Jerusalem Open House. And if you register,
Rabbi Moskowitz is actually in Israel now, so he's going to be doing the event with the Jerusalem Open House at the Jerusalem Open House.
Fabulous. On Wednesday, from 12 to 1, we're having a lunch and learn with Dr. Magda Teeter. Is that how you pronounce her name? She is the the professor of history and the Schwindler Chair of Judaic Studies at Fordham University, reckoning with the past anti-Semitism and racism. We continue to have our suite of important immigration clinics on Wednesday night and Thursday night, and resistance calls and cards to communicate with our elected officials and policymakers about important actions. Those are on Thursday from 12:30 to 1:15. Our Emmett Trans and Non-Binary Team meeting is on Thursday evening from 7 to 8. And I think that's about it for all of that.
I have one additional announcement. Very exciting news that our Erev Tisha B'Av laning slots are now available on the CBST Torah Readers doc. If you go to the traditional egalitarian tab, for those of you, Hamevin Yavin, those who chant Torah, like know exactly where to find this. On the TEM tab, if you look to Tisha B'Av as it comes in on July 17th. And then we have a couple Torah readings for our Mincha Mariv observance on July 18th. We have openings for both English readings and Eicha trope. Please remember that if you're signing up for chapter 3 of Eicha, we have a special and glorious CBST melody that we did not invent, but we hold to every year. So you can talk to me or Cantorial intern Sam Rosen about that. And we would delight in your participation. I'm the only one signed up right now, and I don't want to win all of it.
Thank you, Rabbi Rapport.
This is the earliest that Tisha B'Av ever falls.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to be also my birthday, which was true for my sweet 16 was Tisha B'Av. But this is really the earliest it ever falls. We are in the earliest possible cycle of the Jewish calendar, and next year will be quite different, but which is why Rosh Hashanah is September 5th.
So
yeah,
every year I have the blessing of thanking our fabulous interns, and I always get a little emotional. So just like, that's going to happen. You guys have been so amazing this year, and we really could not have done this without you. So Dave, first I want to start with you. Rabbi Kleinbaum, Rabbi Rapport said, what a difficult year this is to come to CBST. We've had so many challenges to meet, and never having met many of us in person. And yet you kind of dove right in and led us and taught us with your enthusiasm and your compassion. Your Torah discussions brought us closer to the text, and your generosity of spirit brought us closer to the divine. I'm so pleased you're going to be continuing on with us too, and not only because I hate goodbyes. And I know that our members here in New York and around the country and across the world are happy and relieved that you will be joining us again in the fall, God willing, in person. For you, because of your great love of the outdoors, we have a gift card for you from REI. And because you are a painter, we have a gift card for you from Blick Art Stores. And just because you're fabulous, we have a book plate in your honor that will go into one of the CBST prayer books. So Dave, I'm so looking forward to learning again from you in September and beyond. And we're just so happy you're with us. And I have to say, I'm like really lucked out because Deborah Magdal is not here. And so I just get to do the, yay, you're continuing on with us announcements and thank yous. So Sam, so many of us first got to know you maybe from afar as a member of the CBST chorus. I remember seeing you up on the risers and thinking, oh, who's that guy with the great hair? So this year, those of us who aren't in the chorus got to know your beautiful voice and your beautiful neshama. You brought us through this difficult year with singing that uplifted us when we desperately needed it. And I know I speak for the Kahal when I say we're so glad you're going to continue on with us next year. To thank you for all the gifts you've given us this year, we got a few for you, namely the complete Shirenu songbook, as well as some gifts that attend to your interest in food and drink, including a gift card to Russ and Daughters, which is perhaps the greatest gift that any human being can ever receive, and also a book plate in your honor. So thank you both again. It's just been just such a pleasure and an uplift to have you lead us this year.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for these very generous and thoughtful gifts. Wow.
Yes, very
thoughtful. Oh,
thoughtful.
and Neil reminds me to say they will be coming in your email sometime in the next week.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we will close with a nigun, and we can sing together the words of, or not the wordless tune of Kane Street Nigun. Yananai nai 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 yananai yananai nai nai yananai nai 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 yananai nai 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 yananai yananai nai nai yananai nai 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 yananai nai 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 yananai yananai nai nai yananai nai 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 yananai nai 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 yananai yananai nai nai Yanai nai 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 Yanai nai 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 Yanai yanai nai nai Yanai nai 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 Yanai nai 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 Yanai yanai nai nai Yanai nai 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 Yanai nai 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 Yanai yanai nai nai Yanai nai 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 Yanai nai 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 yanai 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 nai 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 nai.
So I noticed that there have been other things added in the chat as gifts that, and it's fine, Liz, if you want to mention that to make sure to feel
Sure,
free.
and I did forget to mention that, you know, we've also been led by Rabbi Deborah Magdal now, and it's been like an incredible thing to see her evolution as a leader. And, you know, I have to say that as someone who moves words around all day for a living, the incredible literary merit of her brushot is so noteworthy to me. And Deborah is in the process of purchasing a new collection of the volumes of the Talmud. And so we've made a contribution to that, and also a book plate in her honor. And I also wanted to thank all of the members of the Kahal and all the Shabbat morning services who've been incredibly generous this year in your contributions to these gifts. So thank you, everyone.
And yeah, I want to thank everybody in this minyan for being such a loving place for our interns to help emerge as leaders, and the generosity and spirit of love and forgiveness and encouragement is, as anybody who is in the world of training people to become something new in their world with the strengths they come to it naturally and the gifts they're given by their schools, there's nothing like actually leading prayer with Jews and teaching Torah to Jews and struggling with trying to do it well. And so thank to all of you. And I also want to thank Rabbi Rapport, who is the primary supervisor for all the interns at CBST. And anything you see that the interns are doing well, chances are she's helped them do it. So she deserves a huge amount of credit for the amount of time and loving support. And also, if anybody's in the business of training people, you know how important great supervision is, and Rabbi Rapport provides that all the time on a day-to-day basis. We have a twice monthly meeting where all of the clergy team meet together, and that's when I get a chance to have time with the interns. But it's really Rabbi Rapport who does the day-to-day supervision, and anybody who is involved knows how important that is. And I also want to give a shout out to Rabbi Yael Cohen, who helped add to the supervision of our conservative movement students, Dave Yedid and Deborah Megdal, because the conservative movement passed a rule, which they have now rescinded, that any conservative movement rabbinical student had to be supervised by a conservative rabbi. So were afraid 2 years ago that Deborah would not be able to come back to CBST because of this new rule that the conservative movement passed, but they've just rescinded. So we came up with a very clever proposal, I think. This is my contribution, or the clever workarounds. I said to the conservative movement, what if we hired Rabbi Yael Cohen to supervise a conservative rabbinical student? And they said, oh, that would work. So she has been meeting with Dave and Rabbi Megdal. Dave, is it once a month, or how often have you been doing it? So she's been providing, so just in case non-conservative rabbis weren't good enough, but the joy of that has been that both Dave and Deborah have had access to Yael Cohen's rabbinic leadership and supervision and mentorship, which I think they agree has been profound. So I just want to acknowledge that to all of you, and to give deep credit to and deep thanks to Rabbi Rapport.
Wow, gratitude's so amazing. I feel really touched, and we could just keep letting it flow in Kiddush if we want. We can give gratitude to people who aren't interns as well. I invite people to grab their grape product and their carb of choice for Kiddush and Motzi. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. איי 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 ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. Savri Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
And if you have a carb, you can hold it up to the camera. I see it.
I would like to spotlight Joe and Elizabeth. Dahlia was also showing this off in his Limud class. Look at this pride.
Whoa, so we'll reach out and we'll all reach together and say the Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. B'te'avon.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
As is our CBST custom, we will stay, we will schmooze, we will enjoy each other's company. But before that, a very special pride offering, which some of you may have seen in its component pieces on Shabbat evening. Our Limud B'Shabbat students, our Hebrew school students of every age, have been engaged in a project of quilting, of history learning and making through CBST. and they made for us a Pride video quilt that we are delighted to share with you today. You will see some very familiar faces in these coloring book pages that have been created from archival photographs in our CBST history book, Making Lives Changing History, the 40th anniversary book. And you will hear some very familiar voices, both young and old, interviewed in this video. And then after the showing of said video, if we notice that your camera is turned off, we will assume that you have moved on to your next Pride Shabbat enjoyment, and we will lovingly move you to the waiting room. And at that point, we will unmute everybody so that we can say Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. And thank you, while our marvelous Zoom tech, Jordan, is pulling up this video. Thank you, Jordan, for allowing us to Zoom together today on this Pride Shabbat. And thank you, Netanya, for providing for us all of our live transcription and closed captioning. We love you.
So how did CBST start?
The synagogue was created by a gay man who didn't know very many people. And after Stonewall, people are kind of out. They're not afraid to be seen or to go to gay locations. And he put an advertisement in the Village Voice. And sure enough, he had 10 people attend, a minyan, to hold a Friday night service in February. And that was the first service at CBST.
Why is the Stonewall Inn important?
Gay people were allowed, in anywhere. They weren't welcome. Then that was sort of where they went. I think one day the police found it and then they arrested a lot of people.
Tell me the story about what happened on June 28th, 1969.
We were dancing on the floor, and then we just walked up to the bar and we said, let's get a beer. And suddenly, as we're standing there, the lights go on, the music goes off, and someone yells, raid. And as we walked out the front door into Christopher Street, there was an enormous amount of police cars all facing toward the entrance with their lights on us, spotlighting us as we walked out. The police are trying to disperse us and say, go home, go home. No one wanted to go home. We were just all standing around. The drag queens were the ones who started the rebellion. They're the ones to whom we owe the gay pride movement, because they're the ones who stood up to the police and said, no, we're not leaving. We are who we are, and we're proud of it. They started to dance in the street. They formed a chorus line down Christopher Street, going toward the police. They scattered the police, and the police were there to scatter us. And we were standing there and applauding them and dancing on the street, and it went on all night.
How would you describe the people that are in this photo?
They look happy and they look not afraid anymore.
I think, a protest.
Only missing one thing, the pride flag.
Gilbert Baker wasn't Jewish. He showed up at CBST as a friend of Rabbi Kleinbaum's. He was somebody I hit it off with immediately. A real honor was to be able to spend a day with Gilbert, carry my sewing machine on the subway to 30th Street and sit in the lobby and sew flags. And when he died about a year later, I had the great honor of carrying the rainbow flag at the front of the Pride March.
Can you describe what's happening in this photo?
That photo was taken at 57 Bethune Street, right in the larger room that was the sanctuary. It wasn't so large, but that was the room where the sanctuary was. And that was a period of time when the rabbi arrived and we basically were taking different photographs so that we could start showing the world and defining who CBST was, because there was the ritual side of things that, everybody wanted to learn how to read the Torah, how to lead the prayers, how to write, a drasha.
That's the quilt. The synagogue, of course, took on a project of preparing multiple quilts that because it's hanging in the downstairs community room, right by your classrooms.
How did you respond when AIDS hit?
I'm a microbiologist, and it's very much my world. And my friends started getting sick. So I was hearing from multiple directions that something was very wrong. And at the same time, people were coming to me and saying, do you understand what's going on? And over time, we actually did come to understand. So it was very much a tremendous blow. As far as the synagogue, we started to take losses and sickness very early.
Can you describe what's happening in this photo?
A march is happening, and they're outside like some government building.
Protest?
It feels like Judaism and pride. Then the triangle turned into a sign of pride. Look, I'm gay. I'm proud of it. This is why I wear it.
Tell me, what is the story of that picture?
It's Rabbi Kleinbaum getting arrested.
Well, I think they're all getting arrested. Rabbi Kleinbaum is just the one who has a bunch of police officers holding her.
It's called civil disobedience. They're saying we're going to stand in this area even if we're not allowed to continue to fight for gay rights.
Do you want to ask me what my favorite thing about CBST is?
Sure. What's your favorite thing about CBST?
First of all, I love the high holidays. I think it's wonderful that we have our open door services that welcome everyone. And within the services, the thing that I love most about that is when we bring all of our children up on stage to bless them. And we have our whole community there. And it's just, beautiful to see the generations at CBST. So that's my single favorite thing, blessing the children.
What did it feel like to get married on the first day that it was legal?
It was totally cool. We were the first couple online in Manhattan at City Hall when we got to go to get our marriage license and get married. And once we walked out of City Hall with our marriage license, CBST had set up a rainbow chuppah, and the rabbi married us again for the second time. And Rabbi Kleinbaum, for the first time, was able to say, by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you married.
Have there always been kids at CBST?
Part of what CBST has done is embraced the idea that gay people can have children. And when it first started, that was just not even in the works. I don't think that there were any other, we were obviously the first ones Rabbi Kleinbaum had as babies, but, it was pretty slim to none. It was just the women. And now there's a baby boom. I remember a Rosh Hashanah where Rabbi Kleinbaum told the story about an old guy planting a tree, and somebody said, well, why, you're old, why would you plant like an apple tree? And he said, it's not for me, it's for the next generations. They'll have apples and I'm giving it to them. And that's what she said about trying to start the school you're in and the B'nai Mitzvah class. And just it's for the next generations, and that everybody in the congregation should be committed to you guys.
We welcome you with open arms, with joy and hope.
Yay! And thank you to the people in this room who contributed to the making of this and are incredibly sweet at the Stonewall Inn music video. Sharon Golub, who is a limud gibora. Usually in Hebrew, we would say like a madrichat, somebody who like leads the pathway. She is a hero to us. And especially this year, every week, our students depend on her love and her generosity and her gentle nudging to have their cameras on. Regina, thank you for letting us interview you. Mitchell, thank you for telling the story of Gilbert Baker. May his memory be for blessing. Thank you to everybody who's in those pride pictures. And we saw such beautiful faces in the background of the chuppah at City Hall and on all of our pride floats in the way that CBST has shown up for generations and generations. And thank you, Rabbi Kleinbaum, for letting Jennifer and I spend entirely too much time on this beautiful project. And thank you to everybody for creating a community worthy of such extraordinary celebration. We are going to let everybody unmute themselves in just a minute. This is an act of consent. We will allow you to unmute, but you have to unmute yourself. And when you are saying Shabbat Shalom and giving greetings, this is your loving reminder to not reveal too deeply personal information, since this is still a public space. No debit card PIN numbers or anything you wouldn't want to leave the room. And if we don't see your camera on, we are going to